Good evening. It's Wednesday, the 22nd of October. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News, broadcasting from Jerusalem. 2 IDF soldiers from the Karkal battalion were wounded when terrorists in Sinai fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire at a patrol on the Israeli side of the Sinai border, halfway between Eilat and the Gaza Strip. The IDF spokesman said that a female officer was in moderate condition and a male soldier was in moderate to serious condition. They were evacuated by helicopter to Soroka Hospital in Beersheba. Both the IDF and the Egyptian army dispatched large numbers of troops to the area of the incident, which occurred near Mount Hafir. The Sinai is home to several Islamic terror groups that target both Egyptian security forces in Sinai and IDF troops and Israeli targets in Israel. The IDF said it is conducting a major aerial intelligence gathering operation to figure out what happened. Police Chief Yochanan Danino unveiled his plans today for restoring calm to Jerusalem and enhancing the public security. While on a visit to the Beit Hanina neighborhood, accompanied by Mayor Nir Barkat, he told IBA's Margot Dudkevich the effects the new measures will be felt soon.
With firebomb attacks, stone throwing and acts of vandalism becoming an almost daily occurrence in East Jerusalem, and the city's light rail system and private vehicles bearing the brunt of the attacks, Police Chief Yochanan Danino has come under fire for failing to act sooner to restore calm. Quelling the ongoing violence in Jerusalem and restoring the public's faith and security is a national priority, Police Chief Danino said. Accompanied by Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, Danino announced the new measures at a press conference in Beit Hanina. One of the latest technologies employed by police includes a surveillance balloon hovering hundreds of meters overhead, monitoring events on the ground. A Hawkeye camera transmits images to police below, enabling security forces to be dispatched to the scene of a disturbance in minutes. Countering his critics, Danino told IBA News a beefed-up police presence will be deployed in areas where the unrest occurs and will remain in areas prone to violence until a special task force whose job will be to quell disturbances and arrest perpetrators is ready to operate on the ground.
I called it national plans, and it's together with the mayor and his people and the other organizations. You know, in all these plans, the basic thing will be more. You'll see more police officers here in Jerusalem in the next weeks, and you'll see a lot of technological instruments that we're going to use with this in this program. I believe that in not so long, in 2 or 3 weeks, you'll see the results in the streets of Jerusalem.
In recent months, Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat chastised the police and the government for failing to quell the escalating violence. Now he says he's confident the unrest will be addressed. For some months now you've been calling on the police to take action to restore the security to the people in Jerusalem. Why do you think it took so long for them to act?
Well, the amount of police we had in Jerusalem was focused on defense, and it's not good enough. And the challenge was how to convince the national government to dramatically increase the amount of qualified policemen, number one. Number two, to add technology that it will enable the police to win the fight over people that throw stones and that create the havoc. And I believe that the plan that I've been working on, and I've learned and looked at what the police is proposing, is the right plan. However, it's dragging, it's not happening fast enough. And simultaneously, the city of Jerusalem is suffering from stones throwing and Molotov cocktails, which is unbearable, unacceptable. And so I'm here to help the police. I believe the police could get things done once they get the right technology and once they have additional forces given to them by the national government. So I'm here. I feel comfortable enough that once the teams will arrive and the technology is arriving, the police will be able to win the fight over and return law and order.
Violence on the Temple Mount is unacceptable, and will be treated with zero tolerance, Balkat says.
People that will use violence to try and change the status quo will be arrested. It's unacceptable, and the police understands. They'll use all the force they need to enable Jews to get up to Har Bayit within the status quo. And people will not change the status quo using force. I think it's very, very clear, not in Har Bayit, nowhere else will we allow violence.
According to Police Chief Danino, the public should feel the effect of the latest measures to enhance their security within days. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out strongly against new elections for the second day in a row, telling his ministers at the opening of the weekly cabinet session that elections are the last thing Israel needs right now. Here with more is Eli Walgalanter.
Good evening. Despite much speculation that new elections may be in the offing, Prime Minister Netanyahu said today that's not where he's headed because new elections are not in the country's interests. And most of his ministers almost assuredly agreed. Netanyahu said at the opening of the weekly cabinet meeting that as the Knesset's winter session begins next week, the government has a number of important issues to tackle. At the same time, there are also internal political issues that are being addressed today. Netanyahu will hold a meeting later today with the party heads of his coalition to tell everyone to calm down and stop the political posturing. At an office bash yesterday celebrating the Prime Minister's 65th birthday, Netanyahu said outright, the last thing the people of Israel need now is an election. We want to continue with this government, with this Knesset, to continue leading the people of Israel along the correct path. Netanyahu's remarks meant to quell speculation that he may be headed to elections is not without cause. On Monday, he announced that he was withdrawing support for a controversial conversion bill that pitted Justice Minister Tzipi Livni's Hatzanuah party against Economy Minister Naftali Bennett's Bayit Yehudi. The bill passed its first Knesset reading in the spring with Netanyahu's support, but could have a harder time passing the next two votes required to become law without the Prime Minister. Hatzanuah Party Chief Tzipi Livni shot back at Netanyahu, revealing that she intends to establish a united political front with Finance Minister Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid for the advancement of the peace process. She said the bloc of 25 mandates, her 6 seats and Lapid's 19, will also join forces on matters of religion and state, such as the conversion bill. Said Lapid, we are in very tight cooperation on both subjects. On religion, we are also partnering with the Yisrael Beitenu head Avigdor Lieberman. Lapid reportedly told Livni that he does not agree with all of her positions on the diplomatic issues, but stressed that we have to be more united and coordinated. The move appears to push Yesh Atid leftwards in general in an attempt to consolidate its core of secular center-left voters. But despite all the talk, it does not appear that elections are in the offing anytime soon. This government may not last until the official date of the next election, which is November 7, 2017, but it's not in the interest of any of the coalition members to jeopardize their jobs by holding new elections now. Laura?
Thank you, Eli. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon took aim at Turkey, describing it as the leader, along with Qatar, of the Muslim Brotherhood axis in the Middle East. Ya'alon made the comments to U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel during their meeting yesterday in Washington. Ya'alon also got personal, saying that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is a known follower of the Islamic extremist group. According to Ya'alon, Hamas has moved its operations from Syria to Turkey and has set up a terror headquarters in Istanbul alongside the one operating in Gaza. Ya'alon was received at the Pentagon with full military honors. He spoke of the close military relations between Jerusalem and Washington, especially the funding for the Iron Dome anti-missile system. Ya'alon went on to stress that even when there are disagreements, they cannot cloud the deep friendship and warm ties between the two nations. Speaking to Charlie Rose, Ya'alon admitted that he does not support a Palestinian state.
You seem to be saying, I no longer believe in a two-state solution. That seems like what you're saying.
First of
that
all,
they have their own independence already, so therefore they don't need a state. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that?
You might call it a state. You might call it the Palestinian Empire. It's going to be an autonomy. It's going to be demilitarized. And yes, in order to encourage them, as we don't want to govern them,
but why don't
they should be competent to govern themselves. Let's deal with that.
Your Prime Minister says he believes in a two-state solution.
You might say everything. I believe in the Palestinian Empire. What does it mean? It's going to be an autonomy.
But why can't you call it a state?
Are they ready to recognize our right to exist as a Jewish state? Are they ready? Have you heard it from Abu Mazen, from Arafat, not talking about Hamas? And this is the core of the conflict. They believe that 67 lines is just a stage. Their ambition is not to have a Palestinian state. Otherwise, they would have had it, because Annapolis proposal, Camp David proposal, Oslo proposal, even the UN partition plans proposal of 47. Okay. They rejected all of it because their aim is not to have a Palestinian state in 67 lines, but to destruct the Jewish state. This is the idea. That's why they don't say even two states for two peoples. They deny the existence of the Jewish people.
Do you believe that that is the position of Abbas?
Absolutely. Can you quote him saying that he is ready to recognize our right to exist as a nation state of the Jewish people, or to consider territorial compromise as the end of conflict and finality of claims? You can't quote him saying it. And this is a tricky way of Abbas.
But let me ask you this. At Camp David, when Ehud Barak was negotiating, was a recognition of a Jewish state part of the negotiations?
No.
So but you added that later.
No, we didn't add it later. Rabin tried to put it in Oslo.
Yeah.
And he failed. So his condition to agree to Oslo was to get a side letter from Arafat, in which Arafat was committed to change the Palestinian charter in a way that it would be a recognition of Israel as a Jewish state. And he didn't do it. He didn't do it. Why didn't do it?
Arafat didn't do it.
Arafat didn't do it.
He didn't do it because?
Because he didn't want to recognize our right to exist as a Jewish state.
The current situation between Palestinians and Israel is unsustainable. This according to U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who made the comment today in a press conference with his German counterpart, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, after they visited one of the few remaining sections of the Berlin Wall ahead of next month's 25th anniversary of its fall.
The current situation, the status quo, is unsustainable. President Obama said that in his United Nations speech. I have said that many times. I think most people understand that in order to avoid the challenges of a binational state and the challenges of further deterioration, it is important to try to find a way to negotiate. But I think we're best when we try to work quietly at that, and that's what we're doing now.
The United Nations will launch an investigation into attacks on its facilities in Gaza during Operation Protective Edge, as well as the use of UN sites by Hamas to store weapons. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon made the announcement while speaking at a monthly meeting of the UN Security Council on the Middle East, where he also recounted his visit to a UN school in Gaza's Jabalia refugee camp, where civilians had sought protection during the war.
Nothing could have prepared me for what I witnessed in Gaza. I saw mile after mile of wholesale destruction. I visited a United Nations school in the Jabalia refugee camp, which was shelled during the hostilities. Civilians had sought protection under the UN flag. Parents and children shared heart-wrenching accounts of suffering and pain. I met a young man whose brothers and sisters perished in the blast. He is now confined to a wheelchair, having lost his legs. I look forward to a thorough investigation by the Israeli Defense Forces of this and other incidents in which UN facilities sustained hits and many innocent people were killed. I am planning to move forward with an independent board of inquiry to look into the most serious of those cases, as well as instances in which weaponry was found on UN premises.
Rumors during the war that Hamas had intended to use the attack tunnels that the IDF destroyed during Operation Protective Edge for a massive terrorist operation against Israeli civilians has now been confirmed. The IDF spokesman said Army intelligence learned that Hamas had plans to penetrate Israeli communities via tunnels under the border from the Gaza Strip and then kill or kidnap as many people as possible. The simultaneous coordinated surprise attack was meant to send at least 10 heavily armed Hamas terrorists in each of 14 tunnels into Israel. The IDF said, however, that there was no firm date for the mass attack, unlike the unconfirmed reports during the war that specifically mentioned Rosh Hashanah as the intended date. U.S. weapons sent to the Middle East sometimes fall into terrorists' hands. That tendency took place once again on Monday when Islamic State terrorists apparently seized at least one cache of weapons that were meant to supply Kurdish militiamen battling the extremist group. The seized bundle included hand grenades, rocket-propelled grenade launchers, and ammunition. The weapons were airdropped by U.S. planes and intended for Kurds fighting ISIS in the embattled Syrian town of Kobani near the Turkish border. The Islamic State later posted a sarcastic thank you note to the U.S. on their social media sites. The Pentagon was embarrassed by the video of the captured weapons, but say they are not certain that it is authentic.
They are certainly of the kinds of material that was dropped with small arms, ammunition, and weaponry. So it's not out of the realm of the possible in that regard. But again, we're taking a look at this, and we just don't know. And when we have something definitive that we can provide in terms of an assessment on that, we'll do that. I do want to add, though, that we are very confident that the vast majority of the bundles did end up in the right hands. In fact, we're only aware of one bundle that did not.
Canada has raised its level of alert following the killing of a soldier for Islamic terrorist motives. The attack took place in Quebec, where the terrorist deliberately drove his car into two soldiers, killing one of them and injuring the other. The suspect was identified as a convert to Islam named Martin Katour-Roulet. He was shot dead to death by police following a chase when his car flipped over in a ditch and he exited the vehicle holding a knife. Katour-Roulet was on the radar of federal authorities who say that he was a known Islamic radical whose passport had been seized and who had been picked up and questioned, but later released due to lack of evidence of wrongdoing. A rare archaeological find has shed light on the Roman deeds which sparked the second rebellion, known as the Bar Kokhba revolt. It was unearthed near the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem and was revealed to journalists. IBA's Aria O'Sullivan brings us the story.
Imagine the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who savagely put down the Bar Kokhba revolt, entering the gates of Jerusalem exactly 1,884 years ago. He would have likely seen this stone, possibly part of a triumphant arch. Archaeologists uncovered this rare inscription of Latin letters carved in hard limestone 3 months ago during salvage digs near Damascus Gate prior to the construction of a shopping center.
And when we've discovered the inscriptions, first of all, I was very much surprised. And I was even more surprised, and the adrenaline came flowing up when I found and I could decipher the letter G, and then the previous letters A, V, and recognized the word Augustus. So I knew that I was dealing with the Latin inscriptions, which is rare.
The 6 lines of Latin text mentioned Hadrian and had a date, but they needed an expert to decipher it. They summoned Avner Acker from the Classical Archaeology Department at Hebrew University of Jerusalem.
We know that he came to Jerusalem in 130. We know from other cities that monumental arches are put up towards his visit. This is why we say that this arch as well is a welcoming arch for Hadrian.
Latin inscriptions are very rare in the Holy Land. The first part of this inscription was discovered in the 19th century and is held by the Franciscans. But until this piece was discovered, it was impossible to date it. The find is significant because it fuels the debate over what caused the Second Revolt. Some scholars say it erupted after Hadrian decided to construct a new city and a pagan temple in Jerusalem. Others say the construction was a punitive measure after the revolt was crushed. Israel Museum in Jerusalem has on display a rare bronze bust of Hadrian and a partial inscription marking his victory over the Jewish rebels in the year 136.
He visited here at 129, 130 CE. This is the other inscription that was just found in Jerusalem, prepared for his visit. We do not know for certain where he was during the battles of the Bar Kokhba revolt, but he was certainly leading the fight against it.
The stone could indicate that the construction was going on before the revolt.
This is another puzzle in the historical mystery of what preceded what. the revolt of Bar Kokhba, or the foundation and the establishment of a city on top of the ruins of Jerusalem named Ilia Capitolina, and the change of status of Jerusalem to a Roman colony. We don't know yet which one preceded, but this is one piece in the puzzle.
Jerusalem and Jews are still here, while Hadrian and Rome are long gone. Yet every now and then their legacy surfaces, and it's a cause for excitement. Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
2 new Jerusalem chief rabbis were elected last night, filling posts that had been empty for more than a decade. Former Chief Rabbi Shlomo Amar won the Sephardi position, and Rabbi Aryeh Stern the Ashkenazi one, in bitterly contested races that were delayed due to a protracted legal battle over the electoral process for the coveted spots. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, who had given both Stern and Amar his support, said that he had promised he would work toward the election of one Haredi and one national religious rabbi for Jerusalem so as to represent all of the city's residents, and that he had succeeded in this mission. And for the first time in this country, fat meets thin on the catwalk. Influenced by the New York Fashion Week, the Mashbir Letzarchan showcased their fashions in a unique way that appeals to buyers of all sizes. Leading brands such as Springfield, Truco, and Punt Roma hit the makeshift runway with 0 and plus size models side by side. The idea? Clothes are made for everyone. Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up. Here's a look at the late afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather forecast and a slight drop in temperatures under partly cloudy skies. Here are the highs and lows for the next 24 hours. And that's all for this newscast. Please join us again tomorrow at the same time on the same channel when Aaron Viner will be here to bring you the latest news from Israel. Until then, I'm Laura Cornfield. Have a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.